Hello, English language learners. Welcome back to the Artificial Fluency Podcast. I'm Emma. And today we're going to talk about something that every English learner wants to master: speaking English with confidence and improving your fluency. If you're tired of hesitating when speaking English or feeling unsure about your fluency, you're in the right place. Before we begin, let me ask you a few questions. Have you ever found yourself searching for the right words when speaking in English? Or maybe you've struggled to express your ideas clearly? How about feeling nervous or shy when talking to someone in English? If you've answered yes to any of these, don't worry. This episode will help you improve your confidence and fluency, and the best part is, by the end of it, you'll feel much more comfortable speaking in real-life situations. In this episode, we'll use some real-life stories and examples to help you understand how to speak more naturally and confidently. Whether it's about meeting new people, giving a presentation at work, or having a conversation with a neighbor, we'll cover situations where you can practice your speaking and writing skills. Listening to these stories will not only help your listening skills, but also give you ideas on how to use what you've learned in your own conversations. So, let's dive into the first story. Imagine you're at a coffee shop and you want to order your favorite drink. It's a simple situation, right? But many people get nervous even about this. I remember the first time I went to a coffee shop in London. I was nervous about speaking to the barista. I wanted to order a latte, but I wasn't sure how to ask for it. I stood there looking at the menu, thinking about the right words. I said, "I'll have a latte, please." But the barista didn't hear me properly. She asked me to repeat myself. This happened a few times, and I started to feel frustrated. But after practicing a few more times, I learned that it wasn't about saying the perfect sentence. It was about being confident and clear. I realized that if I speak slowly and clearly, it's easier for people to understand me, and I'll be more confident. Now, whenever I order a drink, I don't hesitate. I smile and say, "I'll have a large cappuccino with extra foam, please." And the barista always understands me. This brings me to an important point. Confidence is key. Even if you make a mistake, it's okay. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Let's think about how you can practice speaking confidently in different situations. For example, imagine you're talking to a colleague about a work project. Instead of worrying about saying everything perfectly, try to focus on sharing your ideas clearly. If you don't know a word, you can always describe it in other words. That's what I did when I didn't know how to say something in that coffee shop. I didn't give up. I kept trying. Now, I want you to think about a time when you had a conversation in English and felt nervous. What happened? How did you handle it? Were you able to continue speaking, or did you feel stuck? Think about how you can improve next time. Maybe you can prepare a few sentences or phrases to help you. For example, if you're meeting someone for the first time, you can start with, "Hi, my name is your name. It's nice to meet you." Starting with something simple and easy will help you get more comfortable. I also want to share a story about my husband. We were on a trip to Spain, and we had to communicate with the locals, but neither of us spoke Spanish. At first, we felt nervous trying to speak in another language. However, we learned that it wasn't about speaking perfectly. It was about being brave and showing interest in the conversation. Whenever we didn't know a word, we smiled and tried to communicate with gestures or simple phrases. And the locals were always kind and understanding. This experience taught me that the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. At the English Pod community, we're here to help you improve every day. We upload new videos regularly, so make sure you press the like button and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you'll stay updated with all our lessons to help you speak English with confidence. Now, let's talk about some ways you can practice speaking English every day. You can start by reading out loud. Pick a short story or article and read it aloud to yourself. This will help you improve your pronunciation and fluency. You can also record yourself speaking and listen to it later. This way, you can hear your mistakes and work on improving them. Another great way to practice is by having conversations with others. If you don't have anyone to speak with, you can practice by talking to yourself. Try describing your day or talking about your favorite hobbies. By doing this, you'll feel more confident and ready when the opportunity to speak English with someone else comes along. In addition, try to use the phrases and expressions that you hear in movies or podcasts. For example, if you listen to someone say, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that," you can use this phrase in your own conversations when you don't understand something. By using these real-life expressions, you'll sound more natural when speaking. Now, I want you to think about your own journey. What is one area where you feel you need to improve your English speaking skills? Is it pronunciation, fluency, or confidence? Whatever it is, remember that it's okay to make mistakes. The most important thing is that you keep practicing and never give up. This episode is just the beginning of your journey to speaking English with confidence. I hope you're feeling motivated to practice and improve your fluency. Keep listening, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next episode, where we'll dive into more ways to help you become even better at speaking English. Now, I want you to think about a situation where you can practice speaking English confidently. Maybe it's with a colleague, a friend, or even a family member. Take a moment and imagine yourself in that situation. What could you say to make the conversation go smoothly? What are some simple phrases or sentences you could use to express yourself clearly? The more you practice these real-life situations, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. We're here to support you at the English Pod community. Keep practicing, and you'll see improvement with every conversation. To start off, I want you to imagine a scenario. Think about a time when you've had to speak English in a situation that made you feel nervous. Maybe it was during a meeting at work or when you were chatting with a neighbor. I remember the first time I had to present a project at my previous job. I was speaking in front of my boss, Sarah, and a few of my coworkers. I knew the material, but I felt nervous because I didn't want to make any mistakes. My hands were sweaty, and I kept thinking about how my English might not sound good enough. But here's the secret that helped me. I decided to focus on what I wanted to say instead of worrying about how perfect my English sounded. I told myself, the most important thing is to communicate my ideas clearly. I started the presentation with a simple introduction, saying, "Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be talking about the new marketing strategy." Even though my voice was shaking a bit at first, as soon as I spoke those words, I felt a sense of relief. I had started, and that's the first step in speaking confidently. Just starting. Once you begin, you gain momentum. I continued with my presentation, and even though I made a couple of mistakes with my grammar, I kept going. I realized that the more I talked, the more comfortable I felt. By the end of the meeting, I had successfully communicated all my ideas, and Sarah, my boss, even praised me for my clear explanations. That experience taught me that confidence comes with practice. The more I spoke, the easier it became. So if you're in a similar situation, just take a deep breath, focus on the message you want to share, and remember that making mistakes is completely normal. The important thing is to keep going. Speaking of making mistakes, let's talk about how you can handle them. Another story I want to share is about my friend Ben. Ben is a lawyer, and he often has to speak English with clients. One day, he had a meeting with a client named Mr. Thompson, and during the meeting, Ben accidentally used the wrong word when discussing a legal document. He said, "This contract is very complex," when he meant to say, This contract is very complicated. It wasn't a huge mistake, but Ben felt embarrassed. Later, he told me about it and I said, "Ben, don't worry about it. The key is how you recover from the mistake." The next time he had a meeting, he started by saying, "I just want to correct myself from last time. I used the word complex, but I meant to say complicated." Ben felt much better because he took responsibility for the mistake and corrected it right away. This simple action not only helped Ben feel more confident, but it also showed his client that he was professional and clear in his communication. Now think about your own mistakes. How do you feel when you make one while speaking in English? Do you get discouraged or embarrassed? It's normal to feel that way sometimes. But remember, mistakes are part of the learning process. Every time you make one, you have the opportunity to learn from it, and another technique that can help you build confidence is by practicing with a language partner. This is something I recommend to everyone I teach. A few months ago, I had a conversation with a student of mine named Lily. She had been learning English for a while, but she was still shy when speaking. She felt like her pronunciation wasn't good enough, so she avoided speaking English as much as possible. One day, I suggested that she find a language partner to practice with. At first, Lily was nervous. She wasn't sure if she'd be able to keep up with a native speaker, but I encouraged her to give it a try. She found a language partner named Emily through an online platform. They agreed to meet once a week for 30 minutes to have simple conversations. The first time they met, Lily was nervous, but Emily was very kind and patient with her. They talked about their hobbies, and Emily even helped Lily with some new words and phrases. Over time, Lily became more confident. She was able to speak more freely, and her fluency improved. Now, she's not afraid to speak in front of others, and her pronunciation has gotten much better. If you don't have a language partner yet, I encourage you to find one. There are many websites and apps where you can meet people to practice English with. You can also join English-speaking groups or clubs in your community. Having someone to practice with makes a big difference. They can give you feedback, correct your mistakes, and most importantly, encourage you to keep going. Another effective way to improve your speaking confidence is by talking about topics you enjoy. Let's say you love cooking, for example. You can start by learning words and phrases related to cooking. Then find a way to talk about cooking in English. You could try explaining how to make your favorite dish to a friend or family member. Or you could record yourself describing the ideal steps of the recipe in English. This will help you practice speaking naturally about something you're familiar with. I remember when I started practicing my Spanish, I found that talking about food was one of the easiest and most fun ways to practice. I would talk to my Spanish-speaking friends about the dishes I love to cook, and I learned so much vocabulary just by focusing on a topic I enjoyed. So, think about your own hobbies and interests. What are you passionate about? Try to talk about these things in English. The more you enjoy the conversation, the less nervous you'll feel. Another powerful tip is to learn by teaching others. This might sound surprising, but teaching is one of the best ways to improve your own skills. Let me tell you about a time when I was helping a friend named Daniel with his English. Daniel was struggling with sentence structure, so I suggested that he teach me how to build sentences in English. At first, Daniel was unsure if he could explain it to me, but once we started, he realized that teaching helped him understand the grammar rules better. By explaining things to me, he was reinforcing his own knowledge, and he became more confident in his speaking. You can do the same. If you have a friend or family member who's also learning English, try teaching them what you've learned. Even if they're just starting out, explaining things in your own words will help you understand them more deeply. It's a great way to boost your confidence while helping someone else. I also want to share a tip that I learned from my husband, Mark. He's a very confident speaker, and I once asked him how he became so fluent. He told me that he always tries to put himself in situations where he has to speak English. For example, he joined a local English book club where they discuss books every month. At first, he felt nervous talking to people about the book, but the more he participated, the more confident he became. He said, "The more you expose yourself to real conversations, the better you get at speaking." Think about how you can put yourself in similar situations. Maybe there's a local meetup group or an online forum where you can talk with people in English. Or if you're studying for a specific purpose, such as a business presentation or exam, find opportunities to practice speaking about that topic. The more you practice in real-life situations, the more confident you'll become. And here's one final piece of advice. Practice self-compassion. This means being kind to yourself when things don't go perfectly. If you make a mistake or have trouble expressing yourself, don't be too hard on yourself. Instead, focus on what you did well. Did you say something clearly? Did you learn a new word or phrase? Celebrate those small victories. By focusing on the progress you've made, you'll continue to build your confidence. Remember, speaking English with confidence is a journey, and it's okay if it takes time. The most important thing is that you keep practicing and never give up. Now take a moment to think about your own goals. What do you want to achieve in your English speaking journey? How can you start practicing today? No matter what your goal is, remember that confidence comes with time and practice. The more you speak, the more fluent you'll become, and the more confident you'll feel. Let's continue. We've talked about confidence, practicing with a partner, and the importance of enjoying the topics you speak about in English. But now I want to take a deeper look at some of the habits and techniques that can really help you speak English fluently and confidently over time. It's not just about knowing the right words, but also how you use them and how you prepare yourself to speak without hesitation. One key technique that helped me and that I often recommend to my students is the power of visualization. This technique is very simple but incredibly effective. Let me share a story about a student of mine, Emma. Emma had been studying English for a few years, but she was still shy about speaking, especially in public. She wanted to give a presentation at work, but the thought of speaking English in front of a group made her very nervous. So I suggested she try a visualization exercise. Here's how it works. Emma closed her eyes and imagined herself confidently standing in front of her colleagues, presenting her ideas in perfect English. She pictured herself speaking clearly, answering questions with ease and feeling calm. She did this for a few minutes every day leading up to the presentation. When the day of her presentation came, Emma felt much more relaxed. She wasn't as afraid of making mistakes because in her mind, she had already succeeded. And you know what? She did. Her presentation went great, and she told me later that the visualization exercise really helped her to feel more confident. This is something you can try too. Whenever you feel nervous about speaking in English, whether it's in a meeting, a class, or a social situation, take a few moments to visualize yourself speaking clearly and confidently. Picture yourself using the language naturally without hesitations. This small mental exercise can make a huge difference in how you feel when it's time to speak for real. Another powerful technique is to record yourself speaking. I know this might feel a bit strange at first, but trust me, it's one of the best ways to track your progress and build your confidence. Let me tell you about my friend Alex. Alex is an English teacher, but when he first started teaching, he wasn't very confident in his speaking skills. He would often get nervous when he had to speak in front of his students. So he started recording himself. He'd talk about any topic he liked, whether it was a summary of a book he read or his thoughts on the weather that day. After recording, he'd listen to his speech and take notes on areas where he could improve, like pronunciation or sentence structure. Over time, he began to hear his own progress. He was able to identify the words he used most frequently, which helped him learn new vocabulary. And just as importantly, he began to notice the things he was doing well. It wasn't about perfection, it was about improvement. This gave him the confidence to speak more freely in class, and now he's one of the most confident speakers I know. If you haven't tried recording yourself yet, I highly recommend it. You can use your phone or any recording device to capture your voice. Afterward, listen to the recording and try to spot any areas where you can improve. Are there any words you're mispronouncing? Is your sentence structure a bit confusing? Don't worry about making mistakes. This is your chance to see your own progress and focus on small improvements. You can even ask a teacher, a friend, or a language partner to give you feedback. To improve your speaking fluency, try exposing yourself to English every day. Listen to podcasts, watch videos, or even read books in English. Don't just focus on formal English. Make sure to listen to informal conversations too. It will help. You pick up the natural rhythm of the language. Another great way to boost your speaking confidence is by attending English-speaking events. If you can, join local meetups or online groups where English is spoken. This might be a book club, a discussion group, or even a casual hangout with other learners. A few months ago, I went to an event with my friend Lily, who was very shy about speaking. It was an informal dinner event with a group of English learners, and at first, Lily didn't feel comfortable joining the conversation. But after a while, she began to speak up. By the end of the evening, she had shared a story about her recent trip to Paris. She was nervous at first, but by the end of the evening, she felt so much more confident in her speaking ability. It was a small step, but it made a big difference for her. You can start by looking for events in your area or even attending virtual events. Look for opportunities to meet other English learners or native speakers who are willing to practice with you. These types of social interactions are a great way to build fluency and confidence. Now let's talk about staying motivated throughout your language learning journey. Learning a language can feel like a long process, but it's important to celebrate your small victories along the way. One student of mine, Rachel, made a rule for herself. Every time she learned 10 new vocabulary words, she treated herself to something special, like her favorite coffee or a small gift. She said that these small rewards helped her stay motivated and excited to keep learning. You don't have to make it complicated. Maybe it's treating yourself to something you enjoy after completing a lesson or finishing a difficult conversation in English. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it seems. Remember, learning English is a journey, and every step forward is a victory. As we continue on this journey of improving fluency, keep practicing every day. The more you speak, the more confident you'll become. Speak aloud, record yourself, listen to real-world English, and challenge yourself by stepping out of your comfort zone. Confidence doesn't come overnight, but with consistent effort, you'll be able to speak English with confidence and fluency. Now think about your own goals. What will you do today to practice your speaking? How can you challenge yourself to speak more fluently in your daily life? Keep pushing yourself, and remember, every step you take brings you closer to your goal of speaking English with confidence. Let's keep going. Speaking English with confidence and improving your fluency is a process, but with the right mindset and strategies, you can make huge progress. So far, we've covered a lot of techniques, like visualization, recording yourself, speaking out loud, and exposing yourself to real-world English. Now let's take a deeper dive into a few more advanced strategies that can really accelerate your learning and help you sound more confident when speaking. One of the most useful skills to develop as an intermediate English learner is learning how to paraphrase. This means being able to say the same thing in different ways. The reason why paraphrasing is so important is that it helps you avoid getting stuck when you don't know a specific word or phrase. It's a way to keep the conversation going smoothly, even if you forget a word. Let me tell you about a situation where this really helped me. A few years ago, I was having a conversation with a native English speaker named Simon. We were talking about a recent trip I took to Italy, and I wanted to describe the food I ate. I couldn't remember the word pasta in the moment. Instead of stopping and feeling frustrated, I said, "It was a type of Italian food that you eat with sauce, and it comes in many shapes." Simon understood exactly what I meant, and we continued the conversation without any awkward pauses. This is a great example of how paraphrasing can help you sound more fluent. If you don't know the exact word you need, try to describe it in a different way. You can use simple words, or even explain it by comparing it to something else. Paraphrasing allows you to communicate your ideas more clearly, and it shows that you can think quickly in English. Another technique that can really boost your fluency is shadowing. Shadowing is a method where you listen to a native speaker, and you try to repeat what they say immediately, almost like you're copying them. This can help you improve your pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. The key is to mimic not just the words, but the way the speaker says them. You can try this with podcasts, YouTube videos, or even TV shows. Let me share a story about my friend Mark, who used this technique to improve his speaking. Mark had been struggling with pronunciation, especially with some tricky vowel sounds. He decided to try shadowing as a way to improve. Every morning, he would listen to a podcast in English and repeat everything the speaker said, trying to copy their tone and pronunciation as closely as possible. After a few weeks, Mark noticed that his pronunciation improved significantly. He was able to pronounce words more clearly, and he felt more comfortable speaking with native speakers because his intonation was more natural. Shadowing really helped him feel more confident when speaking, and I'm sure it could work for you too. To start shadowing, pick a short clip of audio, like a sentence or two, and try to repeat what you hear. Focus on the flow of the language, the stress on certain words, and the rhythm. It might feel difficult at first, but with practice, your confidence will grow, and you'll start to sound more like a native speaker. You can also record yourself while shadowing and compare your pronunciation with the original speaker. This way, you can notice areas where you need to improve. Another method that's great for boosting fluency is using language immersion techniques. Immersion means surrounding yourself with the language in a way that feels natural and effortless. For example, you could change the language settings on your phone to English, watch English news, or read news articles in English. Let me tell you about my cousin Lily, who used immersion to improve her English. Lily had always struggled with listening comprehension, especially when native speakers talked quickly. One summer, she decided to spend a month in an English-speaking country to practice her listening skills. While she was there, she made a rule for herself. She wouldn't speak her native language at all, even when she was with other tourists. Instead, she would communicate in English as much as possible, even if it was just small things like ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions. By the end of the month, Lily noticed a huge improvement in her listening skills. She was able to understand fast conversations much better and felt more comfortable participating in them. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback from others, especially if they're native speakers or more advanced learners. They can help you spot areas that you may not notice on your own. You can ask them to focus on specific aspects of your speaking, such as pronunciation, grammar, or vocabulary. The key is to be open to their suggestions and use their feedback as a tool for improvement. Another helpful technique is learning English through stories. This is one of my favorite methods because stories are engaging, memorable, and often more enjoyable than studying grammar rules. Let me share a story about a student of mine, John. John had always been a good student and knew a lot of vocabulary, but he struggled to speak fluently because he didn't know how to use those words in conversation. One day, I recommended that John start reading short stories in English. The idea was that by reading stories, he would see how native speakers use words and phrases in context. John started reading stories that were written for language learners, and after a few weeks, he noticed a big improvement. Not only did his vocabulary expand, but he also became more confident when speaking because he had seen how sentences were structured in natural, everyday conversations. Reading stories helps you understand how native speakers think and talk, and it gives you real examples of how to use new words in different situations. You can find a variety of short stories and books for English learners online, so I encourage you to give it a try. As you read, pay attention to new phrases or expressions that you can use in your own conversations. Finally, practicing with a language partner is an essential step in becoming fluent. Having someone to practice with regularly can help you stay motivated and give you the chance to apply what you've learned. You don't have to find a professional tutor to practice with. Many language learners practice with friends, family, or even people they meet online. I remember when I was starting out, I practiced with a friend named Sam, who was also learning English. We would meet every week for a language exchange, where we'd take turns speaking in each other's languages. During our meetings, Sam would help me with some of the difficult grammar rules I was struggling with, and I'd give him some advice on pronunciation. Over time, we both improved our English skills, and we became much more confident speakers. The best part was that it was fun. Practicing with someone else made the learning process feel less stressful, and we both enjoyed helping each other out. If you don't have a language partner yet, try to find someone to practice with. You can look for language exchange partners online or in your community. Having a speaking partner will help you gain more experience and feel more confident in your conversations. Remember, confidence in speaking English comes from practice and consistency. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going step by step. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep speaking. The more you do it, the more natural it will feel. You've got this. Building confidence through real conversations. A major part of improving your confidence in English is getting comfortable with real conversations. Many learners, especially at the intermediate level, can read and write quite well, but feel nervous or hesitant when speaking. I've been there myself, so I understand how frustrating it can feel. A few years ago, I went to a conference in London, and I had the opportunity to speak with a native English speaker named James. I was feeling nervous, especially because we were talking about a topic that was a little more technical, and I wasn't sure I had the vocabulary to explain myself properly. But I quickly realized that James wasn't concerned with perfect grammar. He was more interested in having a natural conversation. The key takeaway from that experience was that native speakers care more about communication than perfection. This is something I tell all my students. When you're having a conversation in English, focus on expressing your ideas clearly rather than trying to speak perfectly. If you make a mistake, don't stress about it. Native speakers are forgiving, and in most cases, they won't even notice small mistakes. Instead of worrying about grammar, try to focus on speaking confidently and maintaining the flow of the conversation. One way to practice this is to join language exchange groups or online conversation platforms. There are many websites and apps where you can connect with other learners or native speakers. I recommend trying out apps like HelloTalk, Tandem, or Speaky. These platforms allow you to find language partners who want to practice English, and you can help them practice your native language in exchange. This is a great way to put yourself out there and practice real-world conversations while also getting feedback on your speaking. If you can, try to speak with someone every day, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. These short practice sessions will help you build confidence and feel more comfortable using English in different situations. Using real-life experiences for practice. Another technique that helped me improve my confidence in speaking English was using real-life experiences to practice. The more you connect language learning to your daily life, the more natural it will feel. For example, you could start talking about things that happened in your day or things that interest you. Let me give you an example. My friend Sarah, who is an intermediate English learner, wanted to improve her fluency. One day, she came to me and said, "Natasha, I want to be able to talk about my hobbies more fluently." So I suggested she practice talking about her hobbies out loud every day. Sarah is really into hiking, so I asked her to tell me in English about the last time she went hiking. At first, she struggled to find the words, but after a few tries, she felt more confident. She told me, "I went hiking in the mountains last weekend. It was amazing. The weather was perfect, and I saw beautiful views of the forest and the lake." By practicing speaking about something she already knew well, Sarah didn't need to worry about memorizing new words. She could just focus on expressing her ideas. And the more she practiced, the easier it became to speak confidently and fluently. I recommend doing this for yourself. Pick a topic you're passionate about and practice talking about it in English. It could be about your favorite books, your work, or your family. The key is to keep it simple and try to speak in full sentences, focusing on fluency rather than worrying about grammar mistakes. Expanding your vocabulary with context. Improving your vocabulary is essential for speaking with confidence. However, simply memorizing words from a dictionary won't help you become fluent. You need to learn vocabulary in real-life context so that you can use it when you need it most. For example, when I was learning new words in English, I didn't just memorize lists. I learned words through conversations, movies, when appropriate, books, and real-life experiences. For instance, I remember a time when I was practicing English at a cafe with a friend named Mark. He said, "This coffee is so bitter. I think I need some sugar." I knew the word bitter, but I hadn't used it much in conversation. After that, I started using the word more often in my own conversations. I could describe food or drinks like saying, "This chocolate cake is sweet, but the coffee is a bit bitter." This kind of vocabulary expansion happens when you learn words in context, which helps you remember them better and use them more naturally. A great way to learn vocabulary in context is to read articles, books, or listen to podcasts. When you come across a new word, try to understand it in the context of the sentence or situation, rather than just looking it up in a dictionary. This will help you use the word correctly in future conversations. Additionally, you can create vocabulary lists based on your interests. For example, if you're into cooking, write down some cooking-related words and phrases. Then try to use them in a conversation. The more you expose yourself to new words in a natural way, the more confident you will feel using them in your own speech. Listening and speaking. Two sides of the same coin. As an intermediate English learner, it's essential to practice both listening and speaking. Listening comprehension and speaking fluency go hand in hand. The more you listen to English, the easier it becomes to speak confidently. When I was learning English, I spent a lot of time listening to native speakers on podcasts, YouTube, and in conversations. Listening to different accents, tones, and speaking speeds helped me get used to how English sounds in different contexts. One of my students, Emma, found that watching English news programs really helped her improve her speaking skills. She told me that after listening to news reporters speak, she could understand their pronunciation and intonation much better. It also helped her know what phrases to use in certain situations. For example, when she was talking to her colleagues at work, she felt more confident using words and phrases she'd heard on the news. Listening to different accents is another excellent way to build fluency. English is spoken differently in various parts of the world, so it's important to get exposure to different accents like British English, American English, or Australian English. You can find plenty of resources online that offer content in these different accents. Listening to a variety of speakers will make you a more well-rounded listener and speaker. You could also practice your speaking by imitating the way native speakers speak. This could mean repeating phrases after you hear them or even trying to copy the rhythm and tone of the speaker. For example, if you hear a native speaker say something with excitement, try to mimic that enthusiasm. This will help you sound more natural when speaking English, as native speakers often change their tone based on the emotion they're feeling. Setting realistic goals for speaking fluency. Lastly, it's essential to set realistic goals for your speaking practice. You don't need to try to be perfect. Fluency comes over time, so it's better to set achievable goals. For example, you could set a goal to speak in English for 10 minutes a day. As you improve, you can increase that time. Or you could aim to have a conversation with a language partner once a week. Setting these small goals will help you stay motivated and focused. And as you meet each goal, you'll feel a sense of accomplishment and gain more confidence. I always tell my students to celebrate small wins, like having a 5-minute conversation in English without getting stuck or learning 5 new words in a week. Remember, fluency doesn't mean perfection. It means being able to express your thoughts clearly and comfortably. So, take it one step at a time and trust the process. The more you practice speaking, the more confident you will become. And soon you'll find yourself speaking English, overcoming the fear of speaking. One of the most common obstacles for intermediate learners is the fear of making mistakes. I can tell you that this fear is very normal, but it's also something you need to overcome. When I first started practicing English, I was terrified of making mistakes in front of others. I remember one day I had to give a presentation in front of a group of English speakers, and I was worried I would mess up or not be understood. But here's the important lesson I learned. Making mistakes is part of learning. In fact, I would say that mistakes are one of the best ways to learn. You see, when you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn and improve. Instead of fearing mistakes, embrace them as a part of the process. This is something that my student Daniel also struggled with. He was always so careful not to make mistakes, which led to him being nervous and not speaking as fluently as he could. One day he told me, "Natasha, I can't speak as confidently because I'm so scared of making mistakes." I encouraged him to think of every conversation as a learning opportunity. After that, he started making mistakes on purpose to learn from them. Over time, his speaking skills improved, and his confidence grew because he wasn't afraid of getting things wrong. He was more focused on communication and on getting his point across. I recommend that you adopt a similar mindset. Every time you speak, try to focus on the message rather than on being perfect. People won't remember the mistakes, but they will remember how well you communicated. So don't let fear hold you back. Every conversation is a chance to practice and improve. Practicing fluency with everyday conversations. Now, let's dive into some practical ways you can practice your speaking fluency. The best way to get comfortable speaking is to make it a part of your everyday life. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. And the best part? You don't need to wait for a language partner or class to practice. There are plenty of opportunities in your daily life to practice English. For example, one of my students, Olivia, used to struggle with speaking fluently in English. She didn't have many opportunities to practice with native speakers, so she was stuck practicing on her own. One day, I suggested she start talking to herself in English. I know it might sound strange, but this method actually works. Olivia started talking to herself about what she was doing throughout the day, like "I'm making breakfast right now," or "I need to buy groceries after work." She also practiced describing things around her, like the weather or the places she visited. It was a small change, but it made a huge difference. By speaking out loud to herself, she started thinking in English, which helped her speak more naturally. I encourage you to try this. Pick a few moments throughout your day and talk about what you're doing or how you're feeling in English. Even if you're alone, it's a great way to practice fluency and keep your speaking muscles active. Another method that can really help improve fluency is to use English in your daily tasks. For example, if you enjoy cooking, you can follow a recipe in English, or if you're doing a hobby like painting or gardening, try reading instructions or watching videos in English. This will help you get used to hearing and speaking English related to topics that interest you, which makes the language learning process more enjoyable. Improving pronunciation and intonation. One of the challenges that many intermediate learners face is pronunciation. You might know the words, but when you speak them, they don't always sound right. Pronunciation and intonation are important for sounding confident when speaking. And the good news is, with practice, they can be improved. Let me give you a real-life example. My friend Jack is from Australia, and when I first met him, his accent was so strong that I had trouble understanding him at times. But Jack didn't let that stop him. He made a conscious effort to work on his pronunciation, and he did this in a very simple but effective way. He would listen to how words were pronounced by native speakers, and then repeat those words out loud until they sounded more natural. Jack also paid attention to intonation, the rise and fall of your voice when speaking. For example, in English, we often use rising intonation at the end of a question, like, "Are you coming to the party?" The tone goes up at the end. On the other hand, if you're making a statement, your intonation will usually fall at the end, like, "I'm going to the store." To improve your pronunciation and intonation, I suggest listening to podcasts or audiobooks in English, paying close attention to how the speakers pronounce words and how their voice rises and falls. You can even try repeating sentences you hear. Shadowing, repeating what a speaker says word for word, can really help with this. Don't worry about speaking quickly at first. Just focus on accuracy and sounding clear. Using role-playing for real-life situations. Another great way to practice speaking is by role-playing different real-life situations. Role-playing allows you to practice specific conversations that you might have in everyday life, like ordering food at a restaurant, making a phone call, or asking for directions. This method helps you practice the language in a way that feels real, so when the situation happens in real life, you'll feel prepared. For example, let's say you're preparing for a job interview in English. You can practice by role-playing with a friend or language partner. One of you can act as the interviewer and the other as the candidate. You could practice answering questions like, "Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses," or "Why do you want to work for this company?" By practicing these types of questions, you'll feel more confident when the real interview comes. You can also practice social situations by role-playing small talk or introductions. This is especially helpful for those of you who want to feel more comfortable in casual conversations. Imagine you're meeting someone new at a party. Practice introducing yourself and asking about their interests. Try using phrases like, "Hi, I'm Natasha. What do you like to do in your free time?" It's an easy way to practice speaking and learn new phrases that you can use in real conversations. Keeping a speaking journal. Another method that works wonders for improving fluency is keeping a speaking journal. This is a bit different from a writing journal. Instead of writing down your thoughts, you'll record yourself speaking in English. It can be as simple as summarizing your day, talking about a book you're reading, or giving your opinion on something. Over time, you'll notice patterns in your speaking, such as areas where you're making frequent mistakes or areas where you're doing well. I've done this myself, and it really helped me track my progress. For instance, after recording myself talking about a trip I took to New York, I noticed that I was using certain phrases over and over again. This showed me where I needed to expand my vocabulary. It also helped me improve my sentence structure, as I could hear myself speaking and realize when I was making errors. I recommend setting aside 5 to 10 minutes every day to record yourself speaking. Then, listen to your recording and reflect on how you did. Don't be afraid to correct yourself. This is a great way to get better. The more you record yourself, the easier it will become to speak fluently without overthinking every word. Speaking in different contexts. Finally, one last way to build your confidence is to practice speaking English in different contexts. For example, in a formal situation, you might use phrases like, "Could you please help me?" or "I would appreciate your assistance." In a casual situation with friends, you might say, "Can you help me out?" or "I need your help." Getting comfortable with switching between formal and informal language will make you more confident in any conversation. My student Adam used to struggle with knowing when to use formal and informal language. But after we practiced together, in different contexts, he started to feel more confident speaking both formally and informally. We practiced situations like making a formal request at work, as well as ordering coffee at a cafe. Over time, he became more flexible with his speaking and could confidently use the right language for the right situation. The more contexts you practice speaking in, whether it's formal, informal, or even technical, the more fluent and confident you will become. So, whether you're preparing for a meeting, a casual conversation, or even a trip abroad, make sure to practice speaking in all the building confidence through daily conversations. The key to fluency is speaking every day. It's just like any other skill. Whether it's playing an instrument, cooking, or learning a new sport, you get better with practice. So, how do you build speaking practice into your daily routine? Let's take a look at my student Emily. Emily was learning English for a few years, and although she knew a lot of grammar and vocabulary, she struggled to speak naturally. She was always worried about making mistakes in conversations, especially when talking to native English speakers. To help Emily, I suggested she start speaking more informally, with her husband, her friends, or even just herself. One day, I asked Emily to record herself talking about her day. This was a simple activity, but it had a big impact. She began by describing her morning routine, like getting out of bed, making breakfast, and going to work. As she practiced more, Emily's vocabulary grew, and her sentences became more fluid. She started speaking faster without worrying too much about getting every word perfect. Emily found that speaking out loud in everyday situations gave her the confidence to express herself better. What can you learn from Emily's story? Well, you don't need to wait for a perfect time to practice English. Start speaking every day about your routine, your plans, or what you're doing in the moment. Even if you're talking to yourself or your pet, just practice speaking out loud. The more you speak, the more confident you'll become. Practicing active listening to improve. Speaking. Another critical aspect of becoming fluent is active listening. I can't emphasize enough how important this is. The more you listen to English, the better your understanding becomes. And this, in turn, helps you speak more confidently. One example I'd like to share is with Henry, another student of mine. Henry was very good at grammar and vocabulary, but he couldn't keep up in conversations because he didn't listen actively enough. He would often misunderstand what people were saying and get nervous, which would affect his confidence when speaking. We worked on improving his active listening skills. We began by listening to simple podcasts or YouTube videos in English, and then I asked him to summarize what he had heard. I encouraged Henry to focus on understanding the main points first, without worrying about every single word. The more he practiced, the easier it became for him to understand and respond to others. His speaking confidence skyrocketed because he could now listen and respond with ease. Here's a simple technique you can try. Listen and repeat. This means you listen to a short sentence or phrase, pause the audio, and try to repeat it out loud. It's a great way to get used to pronunciation and rhythm. Over time, you'll notice that your ability to understand English improves, which will also improve your confidence when speaking. Role-playing to practice conversation. If you really want to feel confident when speaking, role-playing is an excellent technique. This allows you to practice real-world situations in a safe, comfortable environment. Think about a time when you had to ask for directions, order food at a restaurant, or explain something at work. These are all situations where you need to speak English clearly and confidently. Role-playing these situations will prepare you for real-life conversations. Let me tell you about Jessica. Jessica had a job interview in English and was feeling extremely nervous. She wasn't sure how to introduce herself or how to talk about her qualifications. To help her, I suggested we role-play a job interview. I acted as the interviewer, and Jessica was the candidate. We practiced common interview questions like, "Tell me about your strengths," and "Why do you think you're a good fit for this position?" After practicing several times, Jessica felt much more confident. She knew the answers to the questions, and she was able to speak naturally without sounding rehearsed. When the actual interview came, Jessica did great because she had already prepared for the real situation. Role-playing can really make a difference in your ability to perform well in real conversations. You can try this at home with friends or family, or even practice with a language partner online. Expand your vocabulary with real-life stories. 1 of the best ways to improve your fluency is by expanding your vocabulary. The more words you know, the more precisely you can express your thoughts. But how do you expand your vocabulary in a way that feels natural? I'll tell you about my friend John. John is a language enthusiast who loves to read and listen to English podcasts. One day, John came to me with a new word he had learned from a podcast, breathtaking. He explained that the speaker was describing a beautiful sunset, and John had never heard the word used in that way before. We started exploring new vocabulary together. Every time John came across a new word, we would discuss how it could be used in a sentence. We also explored synonyms, words that mean the same thing but might be used in different contexts. For example, beautiful, amazing, and breathtaking are all words that could describe something impressive, but they have slightly different nuances. By learning new words in context, through stories, conversations, or podcasts, you can build a stronger vocabulary and use these words more naturally in your own speaking. The next time you hear a word that's unfamiliar, take a moment to understand how it's used, and then try to use it in your conversations. The more you use it, the more natural it will feel. The power of using English in different contexts. One of the best ways to speak confidently is to practice using English in different contexts. I want you to think about the various situations in your life where you use English. Do you speak at work? Do you have conversations with friends? Are you speaking with family members? Each of these situations requires different types of language. By practicing in different contexts, you'll feel confident in any situation. For example, I had a student named Olivia who was preparing for a business trip. She needed to speak English with colleagues, but she wasn't sure how to manage business conversations. To help her, we role-played common business scenarios, such as making introductions, discussing a project, or asking for clarification. By practicing these situations, Olivia became much more confident in her ability to speak in a professional setting. In addition to business settings, I encourage you to practice English in casual contexts as well. For example, practice ordering. coffee, asking for directions, or making small talk with a friend. It's important to be comfortable with both formal and informal language. Speaking English with friends and family. Finally, don't forget to practice speaking with the people closest to you. Friends and family are often the best people to practice with because they can help you feel more at ease. I recommend that you set aside time each week to have an English conversation with someone in your life. For example, my student James decided to start practicing with his wife. They would set aside an hour every weekend to talk only in English. At first, it was difficult for James, but with time, it became easier. They would talk about their day, share stories, and ask each other questions. This time together helped James improve his fluency because he felt comfortable speaking without the pressure of a formal class. You can do the same. Try setting a regular time with someone to speak English. You can talk about anything, your favorite books, travel plans, or even what happened at work. The key is to stay consistent and make it a habit. You are doing an amazing job staying with me until now. Let's continue building your confidence and fluency in English speaking and listening. As we move forward, I want you to imagine yourself becoming better and better every day, just by taking small, simple steps. Now, let's talk about even more ways to make English a natural part of your daily life. These methods are easy to follow, very practical, and will make a big difference if you stay consistent. Practicing English in real-life situations. One of the best ways to improve your fluency is by using English in real life. Let me tell you about David. David was studying English for 2 years but felt shy when he had to speak outside the classroom. He knew the words, but when it was time to use them, he would freeze. So, we made a simple plan together. David started small. When he went shopping, he practiced simple English sentences like, "Can I have a bag, please?" or "How much does this cost?" At first, it was scary, but after doing it a few times, it became easier. Next, David started asking for directions when he traveled, like, "Excuse me, where is the nearest post office?" These real-life practices gave him real confidence. Now, he speaks English at his job when helping customers from other countries. You can do the same thing. Even if you are not living in an English-speaking country, you can create opportunities to use English. If you go to a restaurant, try ordering in English. If you go shopping, read the signs in English, or think about how you would ask for help in English. These small steps make a big difference over time. Thinking in English. Now let's talk about something very powerful. Thinking in English. Yes, thinking. Not just speaking, but thinking. When you start thinking in English, your brain gets used to the language and it becomes easier to speak naturally. Remember a story about Sarah. Sarah was very good at writing in English, but speaking was hard for her. I suggested she practice thinking in English. For example, when she was getting ready in the morning, instead of thinking, "I need to brush my teeth," in her own language, she would think it in English. "I need to brush my teeth." When she looked at the weather, she would think, "It's sunny today," or "I should take my umbrella." At first, it felt strange for her, but after a few weeks, her English improved a lot. She didn't have to translate sentences in her mind anymore. She could just speak naturally because she was already thinking in English. You can start small too. Right now, look around your room and name the things you see in English. Think about what you are doing in English. You do not need to be perfect. Just practice. The more you do it, the easier it will become. Expanding. Speaking time. Step by step another. Tip is to increase your speaking time slowly. You don't need to speak for 1 hour immediately. Start with 5 minutes a day, then move to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and more. Let's talk about Michael. Michael wanted to speak English fluently, but he didn't have a lot of time every day. So he started small. Every morning before breakfast, he spoke English for 5 minutes. He talked about simple things, his plans for the day, what he wanted to eat, and his tasks. After 1 month, he increased it to 10 minutes. After 2 months, he could speak for 20 minutes easily without stopping. It's like exercising. If you start running 1 hour on your first day, you will feel tired and want to give up. But if you start with 10 minutes and increase slowly, you become stronger. Speaking English is the same. Start small, but stay consistent. Using simple structures to speak confidently. Sometimes learners feel nervous because they think they need to use long, difficult sentences. But speaking English well is not about using complicated words. It's about communicating clearly. Use simple structures first. I remember a funny story with William, one of my students. William always tried to speak using very long sentences with difficult words, but he would often get stuck and forget what he wanted to say. I told him, "William, try to use short sentences first. For example, instead of, 'I am planning to proceed to the local supermarket in order to purchase groceries,' just say, 'I am going to the supermarket to buy groceries.'" Simple, right? And it sounds more natural too. After practicing short sentences, William felt more confident. Later, he naturally started using longer sentences when he was ready. If you are speaking and you feel nervous, just focus on simple, clear sentences. You will sound natural and you will be able to communicate better. Staying calm when you make mistakes. Another very important thing, do not be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning. Everybody makes mistakes when they learn something new. I still make mistakes when I try to learn new things. Let me tell you about Thomas. Thomas was very good at English grammar, but he was afraid to speak. He said, "What if I make a mistake? What if they laugh at me?" I told him a simple truth. Making mistakes is how you learn. No one becomes fluent without mistakes. We made a game together. Every time he made a mistake while speaking, he would smile and think, "Good, I'm learning." It changed his mindset. Instead of feeling scared, he felt proud. After a few months, Thomas became one of the most confident speakers in the class. So, if you make a mistake when speaking English, do not feel bad. Smile. Learn from it. Remember that every mistake brings you closer to fluency. Practicing English with role-playing scenarios. Now let's talk more about role-playing because it's very powerful. Role-playing means pretending to be in a real-life situation and practicing what you would say. Let's say you are at a restaurant. You can pretend to be the customer. You can practice saying, "Hello. I would like to order a chicken sandwich. Please. Can I have a glass of water? How long will it take?" Or maybe you are at a doctor's office. You can practice. "Good morning, doctor. I have a headache. It started 2 days ago. What medicine should I take?" Or imagine you are traveling. You can practice. "Excuse me. Where is the nearest hotel? How much does a room cost per night? Can you show me the way on the map?" Practice these situations with a friend, a family member, or even by yourself. If you want, you can even play 2 parts. One part you ask the question, the other part you answer. It's fun and it builds real confidence. My student Sophia practiced role-playing with her husband every evening. After dinner, they would pick one situation to practice. After 2 months, Sophia could handle real conversations in stores, airports, and hospitals without any fear. You can do the same. Choose a situation. Practice speaking. Feel yourself becoming more natural and confident every day. Speaking English about your interests. Finally, one of the best ways to improve your speaking is by talking about your own interests. When you talk about something you love, you speak more naturally because you are excited and relaxed. For example, my student Daniel loves gardening. He would talk for hours about plants, flowers, and how to take care of a garden. We use this passion to practice English. Daniel would describe how he planted seeds, how he watered them, and how he protected them from insects. Because he loved the topic, he didn't even realize he was practicing English so much. Think about your own interests. Maybe you enjoy cooking, sports, traveling, reading, or working out. Choose a topic you love and start speaking about it in English. Describe what you like about it. Talk about your experiences. Share your advice. You will speak more fluently because you care about what you are saying. Talking about your interests not only improves your fluency, but it also helps you enjoy the process of learning English. After a few weeks of practice, Alice noticed that people understood her better. She was still speaking in a natural way, but at a slower pace. It gave her more control over the conversation, and she didn't feel rushed. This is something you can try too. When you're practicing speaking, remember that it's okay to speak slowly. Focus on pronouncing words clearly, and don't worry about rushing. Speak at a pace that feels comfortable for you, and soon enough you'll find it easier to speak without hesitation. Focus on common phrases. Another great way to sound natural in English is by focusing on common phrases used in everyday conversations. Learning individual words is helpful, but phrases are what you'll hear most often when people speak. These phrases help you speak more naturally and confidently because you don't have to think about grammar rules all the time. For example, John is a student who was struggling with small talk at work. He knew how to introduce himself and say basic things, but when someone asked him about his day or his weekend, he felt stuck. I gave him a list of common phrases that people use every day. Phrases like, "How's it going?" "What did you do?" "Over the weekend?" "I'm doing well, thank you for asking." "That sounds interesting." By practicing these phrases, John became more confident when speaking to his colleagues. He didn't need to think so much about the words. He knew exactly what to say. Using these phrases made his conversations flow naturally, and soon he felt much more comfortable speaking English. You can start using these common phrases in your own conversations. The next time someone asks you about your plans or how you're feeling, try using one of these phrases. Over time, you'll find that you can speak much more confidently because you'll know exactly what to say. Record yourself. Speaking, a powerful way to improve your fluency, is by recording yourself speaking. Listening to your recordings can help. You notice areas where you can improve and build your confidence. I know it might feel strange at first, but trust me, it's an effective tool for growth. Rachel, one of my students, used this technique to improve her speaking. She would record herself talking about her day or describing a recent experience in English. At first, she was nervous because she didn't like hearing her own voice. But after a few weeks, she began to notice small things she could improve, like pronunciation or sentence structure. Rachel started to use her recordings to identify her strengths and weaknesses. She would listen carefully, correct her mistakes, and try again. Gradually, her speaking became smoother, and she felt more confident when speaking to others. If you want to try this, simply use your phone or computer to record yourself. You can describe your morning routine, talk about what you did last week, or even tell a short story in English. Play it back, listen to it, and think about how you can make your next recording even better. Expand your vocabulary. A strong vocabulary will help you speak more clearly and confidently. But remember, you don't need to know every word in the dictionary. Focus on learning words that are useful in everyday situations. James had the goal of expanding his vocabulary. He knew a lot of words, but he didn't feel comfortable using them in conversations. I suggested he learn synonyms for common words. For example, instead of always saying good, he could say great, fantastic, or wonderful.